Welcome back to the garage of barely controlled chaos. Today, we're going to try to clean up the transmission and transfer case a little bit. So a couple of weeks after pulling the engine and transmission and transfer case and all that, this is where we stand. Engine's out there, and I've got the transmission and transfer case attached to the engine hoist because my back hurts. And you, the camera on a stick, are currently hanging from a hydraulic cylinder. We've got the unholy caustic sauce on here. Believe it or not, my goal here has not been to get it clean, but just to get it to a point where maybe I can pressure wash it. At least at this point we can confirm that yes, it is a T90A1. A while later, can finally see the data tag on here indicating that this thing is a Spicer 18 and that serial number J190 something. Finally got down to the date stamp, which is upside down, but I believe that's 11/26 of 47. Now that it halfway resembles clean, we're getting that old crappy pumpkin spice oil out. Let's see how long this takes. My workbench has never been a bigger mess. And that smell, it gets into everything. Hopefully just this cardboard permanently, but everything else is just meh. So Dad came over yesterday and we just jumped right to it. Didn't really get any kind of recording in, but I've been following Rick Stiver's T90 transmission rebuild. He didn't have a playlist, so I created one, and I'll link it up there if you need it. But that's basically the exact steps I'm following. Got the transmission locked into third and reverse, so it would lock up the whole thing. Got the yokes off, front and rear. Got the gear off, which turned out to be a little bit more rusty than I thought. So I'm going to have to clean that up really well and see if it's still as good as it should be. The rear bearing here actually came off with the transmission. This is supposed to be a press fit. And it's actually moving today, but it's a little bit on the crunchy side, so that's junk. It was also kind of fun because this nut was on there hand tight. So whoever was in here before did not really do things to spec. It's probably okay, but yeah. It's just a little bit of play on that shaft. I'm going to have to really dig into the specs, and because I don't think it's supposed to wobble that much. Starting to get a little bit more comfortable with the transmission transfer case vintage. The whole Jeep's a Frankenstein survivor as it is, but this is a 1947 casting on the T90, so it's probably original. And this transfer case, I'm going to have to figure out based on this serial number, but it's probably roughly original. Someone painted it silver at some point, and there's some of that silver over here on the transmission as well, so Either way, they're both probably going to spend some time in my sandblasting cabinet sometime soon. So one little fun surprise here. It looks like there's supposed to be a hex head on this bolt that's been sheared off at some point. It looks like it might be like just a hex screw, but it's not. It's just a round hole. There's no way to get that out. So I'm going to have to get creative on removing this to get these levers off the shifter here. But that's a problem for future Bradley. I'm going to get this transfer case kind of pieced back together and off the bench so we can focus on that transmission. which was the whole reason we did all this anyways. If you're still watching at this point, I would like some feedback, because there's a lot of channels that kind of time-lapse the work, or they don't really show the nitty-gritty details of a project like this. I've kind of done a mix of that. I've got almost 50 videos going through and just doing the work, showing all the boring stuff and glossing over a few details here and there, more lately rather than previously. But leave me a comment. Do you like seeing all the boring stuff that no one ever shows? Or would you rather I kind of just skip to the good parts and next video, you see that looking brand new or something like that? I don't know. Leave me a comment. Leave me some feedback. Now this is some next level gunk. I don't know how well this cleaner will work on this, but we'll start up and see how that goes. So this is about the first time I've gotten to actually move the main shaft. And if I'm not mistaken, that's supposed to be a bearing up front. Aren't there supposed to be balls in that bearing? Oh, there they are. Yeah. I think we're missing a few. Alright, got the front cover coming off. And yep, that explains a few things. Well, I've definitely hit a pretty big snag. I don't remember just where I was in recording or not recording as it might be, but side note, the caustic sauce of degreasing does pretty well. That plate that goes under the transmission holds it to the thing of the dampener. That cleaned up pretty well. But anyway, back on track. Hit a snag. Hit several snags. For one, you know, pulled off the cover. First thing I was expecting to see was a little felt or rubber seal. Nope, that wasn't there. I was expecting to have to take off a little snap ring. Well, it half of it's AWOL. The bearing looks even worse from the front. And of course all the bits and pieces of what's left of that retainer. Some of it's here, some of it's still MIA. But the cluster gear is what's supposed to come out next, and it's a pain in the ass. Main gear and all associated stuff came out just fine enough. I am not sure if this is supposed to be bent like that, but I got a lot of reading to do. But yeah, this you're supposed to press this out. If you're following Rick Stiver's guide, he tells you to manufacture a few tools here, and I've got these manufactured, but that shaft is not going anywhere. It will not budge for me. But we're kind of back to the drawing board until I can figure out what to do to get that shaft to move, because I'm missing something. Yeah, I'm missing something. It's probably this guy right here. Yeah, let me go do more. All right, with that cluster gear out, the sad history of this poor transmission is becoming more and more apparent. Don't know if you can see all the little bits and pieces of metal. A few more bits and pieces got embedded on this. I guess this is some kind of shim. The real story is, of course, down in the bottom of the tray, where you probably can't see because of my lighting situation here. There's some bits and pieces of metal. They've been there so long they've rusted. The more we dig, I was wondering why it was so hard to get the gunk out of this area. Between all the little pilot bearings, there's metal in here. Plenty of it. Here's the remains of the oil catcher. Here on the side it caught a little bit more than oil. Over here on the other side, whatever happened, this bit got folded over, rusted. Well, here's all the needle bearings accounted for. Other half of the snap ring. I think this locking plate was homemade. It just doesn't look like it's the right shape, and it looks like it was forced in. Yeah. Well, heck, I didn't even notice this reverse idler gear. That's just about as torn up as the first gear, reverse gear. It's all chewed up on this side pretty unevenly. Well, dang. Here's a couple more Fugitive Pilot needle bearings. What I need at this point is a brass drift. What I don't have at this point is a brass drift. I've got a punch, but I can't get flat on there. I can go in from the side, but it doesn't really work. I can go in from this side, and it doesn't really work. This will be a challenge. Well, unfortunately at this point I have hit an actual roadblock. I cannot get that last shaft out. I have been doing some kind of sketchy stuff trying to get it out, and it's just not gonna work. So I'm gonna have to come up with a different method of getting that shaft out. Otherwise, it's mostly disassembled. I've got to tear down the main shaft and clean it up, and then get all the bearings, little needle bearings, out of this cluster gear, which honestly doesn't look that bad. It might have actually escaped some of the carnage from the metal. I don't know. I'll see once it's actually. I see a big old chunk of metal right there on the teeth. So I don't know if it's escaped unharmed or not. I tried digging through there, trying to find all the metal I could. Those are all the big pieces. There's a lot more of it in the trash can. I kind of wanted to account for all the bits, but that's just not gonna happen. But the case is finally almost empty and ready for a true deep clean. If I can just get this guy tapped out. This cluster shaft has got some pretty significant wear on it. There's a few places where it looks like it got some moisture in it, and yeah, like right there, that's actually just pitted and torn away. So this may need to be replaced. I need to go start putting together a shopping list for parts and compare what I already had purchased to what I'm gonna need. And the next one, hopefully we'll finish this guy up and then we'll get into the transfer case. So I think that's gonna be it for this one. If you found this informative, interesting, amusing, anything, if you don't mind, leave me a like or comment below. It really does help the channel grow. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye for now.